Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Travis Wilson, General Manager at WisSports.net, and bringing to you another Coach's Corner here on WSN. Last week, we talked to a number of coaches that had players drafted in the NFL draft, many of them veteran coaches, of course. This week, our focus is going to be a little different on the other end of the scale. We're going to talk to some first-year head coaches and get their perspectives on what the challenges are going to be, what they're looking forward to, and obviously how they're dealing with getting a first-year head coach during these times, the challenges that go with that. So we'll get right into it. We'll start with introductions. And joining us, first of all, is Skylar Liebzeit, the head coach at Green Bay West, Brock Linde, head coach at Beaver, and David Esswein, head coach at Kiel. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you coming on and taking a few minutes to do this. We'll go kind of round robin here on some of our questions, and we'll start with kind of a background on yourself, what your football background is, what your coaching background is. And we'll start with Coach Liebzeit. If you could give us a little bit on your background, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a Wisconsin Dells grad growing up, played quarterback, ended up going to Ripon College, played quarterback and fullback over there for the Red Hawks. Right out of college, I was fortunate to land a job over in Reedsburg under Coach Brian Pottinger. Had a great season over there that first year in 2015. Ended up making it to the state semifinal game, ultimately losing to Catholic Memorial in that state semifinal game. After that, I took a year out of football, moved down towards the Milwaukee area, spent some time in that offseason, worked with Coach Justin Gum, now the new head coach over at Sussex Hamilton. Following that, I became an athletic director, moved up to Manual where I coached with Brad Johnson for a season, and I spent the last 2 years over at Lawrence University as a wide receivers coach, and then moving to Green Bay West this year.
Awesome, good stuff. Coach Linde, take us through your background a little bit.
Yeah, Beaver Dam High School grad. I'm in 04. Attended Carroll College, played football there. First teaching job was in Monroe, Wisconsin, for 5 years under the direction of Kurt Miller. And then got pregnant, had our first kid, needed to be closer to home. Coaching change happened in Beaver Dam where Steve Kinsey had replaced Tim White. And they called me up and said they had an English teaching job open. So didn't know I was going to get as close to home as being in home, but made the move back to Beaver Dam. Was the JV coach for a year, the OC for 5, and now head coach.
Coach Esswein, what's your background like there?
Yeah, absolutely. Graduated from Kiel. Went on to play wide receiver at Upper Iowa. Walked on there. Earned a scholarship as a junior and senior, and then 3 years ago came back home. Started coaching under Coach Dressler. I coached wide receivers and defensive backs there the last 3 years, and then took over the program now. Learned a ton from Coach Dressler and all the other fantastic assistants we got. And
awesome. So how many of you guys do all of you guys have profiles on WSN from when you were playing?
Yep.
I think I'm a little too old for that.
Okay.
Yeah, not sure.
Yeah, 04 would have been around the time we started doing football, but not nearly as in depth, obviously, as now. So it's always interesting. Coach Esswein, did you graduate Kiel 2012? Is that correct?
Yep, okay. Correct.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think, I covering you guys and a lot of the new coaches coming in, going back when I started in 2008, when WSN started 2002 and moved into football a little bit more in 04, 05 range. So things are starting to come full circle, which is awesome to see. Take us through, if you could, a little bit, the process to become a head coach. What that process was like, going from when you first started thinking about being a head coach to applications you might have put in and the process to get hired where you are. Coach Linde, let's start with you. What was that process like, becoming a head coach?
Yeah, I knew I always wanted to coach, and that was kind of the draw to education too. Those two go so well together, to be in a school and to interact with kids and the faculty and staff. And I didn't know that the goal was to be a head coach until I really got into the coaching experience. Even coming out of playing collegiately, I loved my coaches, but I didn't know that I could ever be, one of them. So, getting into the coaching realm and working with so many great kids and so many great coaches, you just pick up on little nuggets everywhere you go, and you start making your own portfolio for that, for the what if moment. If it all works out, everything aligns with your family, the location, the timing is super important. And so after you figure out what your vision is, and you look at other programs, and you kind of consult with the people that you trust, and those that you really respect their opinions, you start to put together your own vision and a game plan, and then you try to enact it, and you hope that what you can bring to the table as a head coach is going to be accepted by the interview committee, but more importantly, by your fellow coaches and the student athletes that you're really entrusted with a lot of responsibility for. So, it wasn't until I got back to Beaver Dam and kind of had those feelings of responsibility to my hometown, where I really started to get serious about putting in all the energy that was going to need to go into making those portfolios and having that mission statement and the vision and just the overall culture that you want to create in your program. And I've been really fortunate to, like everybody else, we have a lot of great mentors. We have a lot of great facilitators in our lives that have helped mold and shape us. And, you just want to give back to the kids all the things that you found value in going through it yourself. And so hopefully we can, pick up on the tradition that our program has and continue to move it forward, for the kids and the family and the community.
Good stuff. Coach Liebzeit, was this the first head coaching position you applied for, or what was that process like? What has it been like to become a head coach?
Yeah, so there's actually one point in time where I was going to be the interim head coach in Manual for a little bit before I was in contacted by Lawrence University 2 years ago. But going into a season, this will be the first head coach full go. The process, I was fortunate we got into the process a little bit earlier than some of the other coaches. I was actually hired on back in February, so I was able to spend some time with our guys, getting in the weight room. They were able to see my face and know who I am a little bit. But I empathize for the guys that are coming in and haven't had that opportunity to meet their guys yet. It's a blessing that I was able to be hired as quickly as I was. But yeah, it's been a great journey so far. So yeah.
Coach Esswein, correct me if I'm wrong, you're relatively new hire the last couple weeks, is that right?
Yep, correct, just last week.
So what was the process like, applying, and the interview process? Obviously very different than traditional. So what has it been like to get to this point?
Yeah, it's been a little bit more spread out with things. The interview process took a little bit longer given the circumstances. Interviews couldn't be conducted face to face, and that made it a little bit challenging. But going back to some things that Coach Linde touched on, I've kind of always known that I wanted to take over the program, had some stuff ready, and applied right away as soon as it opened up, and just went with it from there.
So obviously things are very different right now from 2 months ago. What kind of challenges unique to a new head coach does this situation present, where you're not in school, you're not, able to meet with your players, you're not able to do a whole lot? What kind of challenges does it present as a new head coach? Coach Esswein, we'll start with you.
Yeah, difficult just because it's going to be later on in the process in terms of our off season for when our kids are going to be able to be with us. We're hoping that's going to happen soon. For me personally, it's been somewhat of a smooth transition because I've been at the school for the last 3 seasons, and the kids know me very well, and I've got relationships with all of them. So it's just going to be a matter of transitioning them to my new expectations, my new set of rules, all that type of stuff. But it's just difficult because we can't have our parents' meetings. We can't be in the weight room with them right now. But, we're trusting our players. We're trusting our student athletes to do their homework, to do the things that they need to do at home, to keep themselves in shape, to keep improving strength and conditioning wise, to be ready to go once we're able to be together again.
Coach Linde, how have you been dealing with this time, and what kind of challenges are you trying to work through?
I think just the delegation of time has been a bit of a struggle. I'm a teacher too, and my wife's essential staff and got 2 small kids at home. So trying to figure out just the balance of life as well as your professional life, home life versus professional life. So trying to carve out a schedule where you can devote time to the classroom that you need and all of your students. I teach AP Lit, and so we've got tests coming up here really soon. A lot of money and a lot of the students' time depending on that test. So I need to give them, the proper focus and all the attention. So that's, a weekly, Zoom meeting with those kids and trying to keep them focused on academics. And then I've got, 5 other classes, and then, my daughter's kindergarten class that I'm responsible for, and then all the new culture that we're trying to infuse into our football program. And we've been fortunate as a district. Our athletic director has purchased some professional development through Jeff Jansen and his leadership courses. So we've been doing an hour session every Monday night from 8 to 9, just trying to infuse a whole core culture of expectation and change to how we go about doing things and try to unify our entire athletic department. So I think the biggest challenge has just been from a time management perspective and how thin you try to spread yourself with everything. But I'm very fortunate, like Coach Esswein, to be in the program for 6 years. Love the kids. They know me. Was able to retain most of the coaching staff from the past. So we're just kind of picking up from where we left off and refocusing some of our energies. But, there's just not enough time in the day. And it seems really weird to say that now because that's all we have. But, I blink and it's dark, and you still have a billion things that you wish you would have gotten done.
Coach Liebzeit, different situation for you. Coach Esswein, Coach Linde, already in the program, already know the kids. You're starting from scratch in many ways, even though you did have that opportunity to at least meet them before everything got shut down. But what kind of challenges does it pose for you as a new guy, new completely to the school, the staff, the team?
Yeah, a lot of it, like the other 2 coaches said, it is your time management and getting that staff put together. For us, we're going to have new faces on our staff. We'll be running a whole new offense, whole new defense. So getting that all ironed out for our staff guys. Right now, we meet every Wednesday night for 2 hours. We do our install offensively and defensively. That way, when we get into our season, we're all in the same terminology all the way across the board, and we all are talking the same language when we're talking with our guys. As far as the guys, we are hoping that they're doing their part in regards to getting their off-season lifts in, staying on top of their schoolwork, so on and so forth. All the main priorities that they have as a student athlete. And then the other big thing that we want to really continue to grow is our culture. We're kind of in the middle of a complete culture overhaul over here, as the program itself hasn't had a lot of success in the previous years, and we are working our tails off to change that culture at Green Bay West. We put a leadership council into place with some of our guys, so accountability is very big, just not from our coaches, but for our player-to-player interactions is one of our key pillars is that accountability for them right now.
And Green Bay West is a storied program in the state of Wisconsin going back many, many years, but recently has fallen on hard times and has not been in the playoffs for a number of years and gone through head coaches quite a few times in the last decade plus. What are some of the biggest challenges that the school faces trying to build an athletic program and a football program? What, demographically or whatever else, what are some of the things that you're dealing with?
Yeah, Green Bay is a big town, obviously, and we have a lot of different high schools inside the town. Notre Dame Academy is right down the road from us, so some of those kids go that direction. We have little sub-Pop Warner programs that get kind of pulled from our middle school program. So we're just trying to create one big umbrella that everyone's underneath, and we continue to build that through. Demographically, there's some issues as far as that goes, but we're trying to have our kids understand with this culture that they leave their personal issues at the door, and when we come into football, it's a whole new family that they're becoming a part of. And that's what we're really trying to build with these guys and building that trust and that relationship. Obviously, with the other two coaches growing up in their towns that they coach in and being alumni and being on those staffs in years past, it's a huge benefit. For me, I did my best to find some of those alumni as assistant coaches that will help us create that rapport right away with our kids and that trust aspect.
Coach Linde, as an alumnus of Beaver Dam High School, do you feel an extra sense of pressure, responsibility to be guiding the program now?
That's a good question. I think no matter where you're from, you're going to feel a certain amount of pressure, to produce. I think the community, they want you to win games, but I also think that being from the community, they might give you a little bit of leeway when they know that you're doing really good things with the kids. I can't say that I was on super successful Beaver Dam football teams. We made the playoffs my senior year for the first time in a long, long time, and lost level 1. But I don't think that anyone is highly critical of the success component when they know that you're doing really successful things off the field as well. And so I think, like the other coaches, we're all in the business of trying to create a culture and to try to create our vision of what success will look like. And any good leadership book or anyone who wins a lot of games will tell you that focusing too much on wins is going to get you in the wrong place. And so, we're really interested in, the off the field as much as the on the field. I make no mistake about it. That doesn't mean we're sacrificing the attempt at trying to win some games, but we know that football is much larger than just the score, on a Friday night. So yeah, I feel a lot more pride than pressure, to be the head coach in my, at my former high school. But we went through a referendum, and so my high school doesn't look the same as it used to anymore. And so it's a blast, and I can see a lot of value in being a fresh coach that the kids have never met before and kind of being able to hit the refresh button. As much as I can see having that rapport with kids and needing to kind of separate some of those relationships, there's no doubt that as a coordinator or a position coach, you definitely have different relationships and can have different relationships than when you're the guy who's calling all the shots. But, we're just excited to get things going, and we're trying to do our best to stay with it during these tough times.
More pride than pressure. I like that. Reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jones at Kimberly, who always said that pressure is a privilege. They've obviously felt a lot of pressure for many years to be so successful. So I like that. Coach Esswein, you're a little bit on the other end of the spectrum where they're looking at building programs that haven't been very successful. You're looking at continuing a program that, reached near the pinnacle or the pinnacle, getting to the state finals last year, losing to Catholic Memorial. So what kind of pressure as a privilege does that bring a graduate of the high school, a first-year coach, all these trying times that we're in, and trying to continue that success?
Absolutely. I got big shoes. But yeah, it's such a nice thing to be able to take over a program from a couple Hall of Fame coaches, people who I've learned and absorbed so much knowledge from. And it's just going to be a matter of continuing that tradition, continuing that legacy, and making sure that the kids realize that last year's success was last year. And now this is now, and we need to continue to do the things that we need to do to keep us at the top, on and off the field. Like Coach Linde said, it's not just about wins and losses. It's about turning out good kids to be good contributors to society after they're done with our programs. But from a football standpoint too, we've just got to keep doing some of the same things. Definitely there's going to be a couple of tweaks. I'm not Coach Dressler, I'm not those guys at all. I'm going to do things my own way, but there are certainly things that we need to continue to do because they've made us successful for the last 5-6 years.
Having talked to a lot of first-year coaches over the years, there's 60 to 70 new coaches every year. One of the things that they always say that they were perhaps most unprepared for is not the stuff that happens on the field, but the stuff that happens off the field. Everything that goes with being in charge of a program, whether it's the off-season stuff, the weight room supervision, the administrative type tasks, dealing with people like me, the media, submitting information to the WIA, all that other stuff. Have you guys in previous coaching positions, have you been delegated with doing any of that, where you maybe have some experience of, the other things that go with leading a program? Coach Liebzeit, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, for me, I was fortunate. I was an athletic director for 2 years. So working with the WIA is almost second nature at this point. The first year was obviously a learning curve, but second year it just comes in the new norm, entering scores and rating officials, that type of deal. But I think you're spot on when you say some of the biggest challenges for new coaches seeing it and hiring coaches in that role was the off the field stuff, and how are you going to handle those big things and that may happen academically or just in everyday society when they're out in the community, being kids, but yeah, that's some of the toughest things that I could see being an issue. But laying down those expectations early in our program is what we're doing. Our guys are actually getting their team letters sent out this week. So that way they have this stuff plenty in advance before the summer hits, and whenever we're lucky enough to get back to normalcy after COVID-19's hiatus on everything. But that's what we're working on our end. So,
Coach Linde, any experience dealing with some of the other things that go into running a program?
Yeah, I was fortunate for Coach Kinsey to kind of give me the lead on a few things here and there, but certainly not everything that you need to have experience for. And then you put your application portfolio together, and it's all theoretical. But at least those portfolios give you an opportunity to kind of ground yourself in what you would do in those situations. So how are you going to handle all these new time, these time sucks on your life that never existed before? And so to have really good quality people that you're surrounded by, to have a supportive family, to have great assistant coaches that you can delegate certain things to. And I was very fortunate that Coach Kinsey gave me so much freedom to do things, and I want to make sure that my staff is afforded those same luxuries, just because it gives you that sense of empowerment when you're able to call some shots. And they don't have to be big things, but when he said, I want you to be in charge of our our end zone system, buy one that you like and learn how to run it and teach it to people. I mean, that's really a small example, but you can take pride in some of those things that the head coach has given you, that responsibility to then teach it to other people. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I've emailed you a number of times about how to figure out how to do this and do that. And there's a lot of people that know a lot more than me. And so I'm just going to keep taking advantage of everybody else's expertise to figure it out, and not try to pretend like I know things that I clearly don't know.
We're here to help anytime. Coach Esswein, any experience that Coach Dressler had designated to you, any responsibilities or anything that you could see as being a challenge trying to balance all of those different administrative and off the field type tasks?
Yeah, certainly there'll be a learning curve with a lot of things. Being a first-time head coach, there's a lot of things that I'm going to deal with that I haven't had to deal with before. Coach Dressler did delegate me to run our strength and conditioning program right away once I returned 3 years ago. So I've got a good hold on that side of things, and running the off-season types tasks, passing leagues, contact days, some of those sort of things. But I'll definitely need to lean on my other fantastic assistant coaches, athletic director, and our staff for some of those other things I haven't experienced before.
As we move into the fall, we're not going to get into all the other things that have to take place before we get there. We're going to be optimistic. And as we move into the fall, there's obviously a large realignment coming this year, and everybody is impacted a little bit differently. All of you have something changing, whether it's maybe not necessarily moving to a new conference, but some new schools moving in. Coach Liebzeit, you're probably the biggest change, going from the Bay Conference to one of the FRCC divisions. What kind of challenge does that bring, and what are you looking at for this fall?
Yeah, it's kind of fun because we go from one really good conference into another. But there's different opponents that our kids have never seen. But on the other hand, they haven't ever seen some of the things that we do either. So we're gonna spend a little bit of time over in Sheboygan and Manitowoc playing those schools. We have the one crossover game with Menasha. So some of our biggest challenges are gonna kind of figure out the pace of play in that conference. study as much film as possible, have our kids study as much film as possible, because a lot of those opponents are very foreign to the Green Bay West program. Obviously, a whole new conference for us, but we as head coaches have started to do some of the breakdown already, and we like I said, we meet on Wednesdays, and for us as coaches, our season really never ends. That's the fun of it. So yeah, we're just doing our legwork on our end to make it as easy as a transition on our kids as possible.
Coach Linde, the Badger reforms this year to a large and a small. Some of the small teams that maybe you've played in crossovers in the past moving into your league, and then of course the Janesville schools moving in with your large division of the Badger as well. So what are you looking at on this reformed Badger conference?
Yeah, I'll be really honest with you. We're so focused on us right now, and trying to make sure that we're the best version of Beaver Dam that we can be, that I haven't really given the opponents a ton of thought. I mean, we're doing a lot of self-scouting, a lot of systems, analysis of how we're doing things. And obviously we're watching ourselves against some of the teams that we'll be playing next year. But we're not really watching, our games last year against Wanakee and DeForest to watch Wanakee and DeForest. We're trying to figure out how we can get to the point where we're going to need to get if we want to try to compete with those teams. I mean, our league is ridiculous, and everybody's league is ridiculous, it seems, because every league has those teams, and everyone's just trying to get to the point where they can be competitive with those teams. And I'm really fortunate that we have those teams in our league, because that's a pretty strong indicator as to your program's success with whether you can go toe to toe against some of them. And football doesn't have the parity, like other sports. The March Madness, anybody can win, but if your team's not ready to go against Coach Rice, I'm sorry, 0 times out of 100 will you win. You're not going to throw like a last second 3-pointer and swish it to walk it up like them. You're just not. So we got a ton of work to do to get better at what we're doing. And we played 3 teams that were either state champs or in the state championship last year. We got Menasha too. Coach Liebzeit, we'll share in that one together. We'll give you notes after week 1, maybe. Perfect. We won't tell Coach Korth. But yeah, I love playing really good teams. I think that's huge, and I hope that our kids can embrace playing those really good teams. When we joined the Badger a couple years ago, I thought we made a decent first impression and made the playoffs, and then we've kind of dropped off a little bit. So we're excited to get back and play some fresh teams, but really more excited about changing what we do, and hope that we can get to a position where we can be one of those names too in the conference that's challenging, the DeForests and the Miltons and the Wanakees. And I'm really excited to get Watertown back on the schedule. We had great rivalry with them in the Little 10, and respect their program, Coach Kamrath. So I'm just excited to get going.
Raise your hand if you've lost to Wanakee on the football field. No shame in that. My senior year, we lost to Wanakee in the playoffs. So I know how it goes. We can commiserate. Coach Esswein, you're the only one that hasn't lost to Wanakee. And you're also, your conference, the Eastern Wisconsin, probably has the least change of any of the coaches here. Kohler, the Kohler co-op moves in. What do you know about them, or just the general landscape of the conference in general?
Yeah, our conference obviously doesn't change much. It's tough to see Sheboygan Falls go. They're a program that's been at the top for a number of years, and it's tough to see them go. But bringing in Kohler, Lutheran Christian Co-op's a great team to add to our really strong conference. And we did play them 3 seasons ago in the playoffs under a different coaching staff than they have now, but a good program that's had some good success in the Big East. So we're excited to have them. We haven't taken a lot of time to scout them at all. Like Coach Linde said, here at Kiel, we've kind of been focusing on ourselves most of the time throughout the off season too. You've got to make sure your stuff's right, good, and sound before you start worrying about the opponent. So, but it's awesome. I'm excited that our conference somewhat stays intact. We've got some special rivalries with a lot of schools, and it's going to be nice to see those be able to continue.
one more question before we wrap up here. If there's younger coaches that are just starting out, maybe they're even in college and still playing, but they know they want to become a coach at some point or a head coach at some point, is there something that you look back at during your build up to this point that you would say is extremely important, a checkpoint or something to do, or something that you picked up along the way that was, you think, really helpful to get you to this point to be ready to be a head coach? Coach Linde, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm finishing out my college career and have every ambition of being the new awesome, cool high school English teacher. And I played defense in college, so I'm thinking coming right out of college, I'm going to be a D coordinator and a cool new high school English teacher. Took a 7th grade middle school English job and a freshman offensive coordinator position. And man, am I really happy that that's the way that my life happened. Starting small with whatever you choose to do, I think is the most valuable thing you can do. Get back to some of those fundamentals, whether it was rethinking how kids understand the English language and reading and writing, to help them in the middle school, or to get back to trying to teach a kid how to backpedal or take a handoff. Those are things that if I would have probably jumped right into AP and right into a varsity position, I might not have had a chance to go back and refresh some of my knowledge of the fundamentals. And so, to be humble and to do what it takes to build yourself up professionally. And I would say to start small. And then, wouldn't you know, after my first year teaching 7th grade, then I moved up to 8th grade and then to 9th grade and then to 10th grade. And so I had those same kids in Monroe like 4 or 5 years in a row because I just kept moving up with them, and same thing with sports. So, you get those promotions when you prove that you're doing things the right way and you really build up a lot of positive relationships. So I guess I don't think that I'm in any position to give people advice on what it takes. There's a lot of people in our state coaching association that would give much better advice than me. But I would say start small and really work to kind of build your knowledge of fundamentals and your own personal coaching identity.
I like that. Coach Esswein, anything that you experienced along the way that you think would be helpful advice for younger people starting out?
Yeah, definitely. Looking back at my playing career, I wish I would have picked the brains of my teammates a little bit more that played different positions. Talk about myself being a perimeter position player for most of my tenure. I wish I would have learned more about the front seven, line play, run game blocking schemes, all that type of stuff. I've certainly picked up on that now, but that's something that, man, I really wish I would have known and prepared myself for looking at things today. But one thing that I've kind of taken away from some really successful coaches that I've been really fortunate to be around is to just always keep an open mind with everything. There's so many coaches that are extremely knowledgeable, but they're pretty set in their ways and they're not open to other things or to doing things a different way. But some of the great coaches are really open to still learn. They're open to learn from other coaches. They're open to taking a lot of suggestions from assistants and that sort of thing. So that's something that I've really taken away and want to keep learning, want to keep growing and doing what's best for our program.
Coach Liebzeit, I don't know if we still got you. It looks like your screen might be frozen there. Are you still there? All right. We won't be able to get to him for our final response, I guess. But
that's far without anything wrong,
Yeah, that does lead us to a point where we'll wrap things up here. So, guys, I really appreciate you coming on. Here we go. Coach Liebzeit's back. All right, we'll give you the last word, Coach. Any advice that you would have for those young people coming up that want to be coaches? Something that you picked up early, something that you wish you would have maybe done more, looked more into as you were coming up.
I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to take that volunteer job right away. Everyone wants to be compensated for their time. but it's okay to be a volunteer and be a sponge during that time and really learn from those position coaches. Like Coach Esswein was saying, all of us wish we would have known a little bit more about another position. Obviously, me as a quarterback and a fullback, I understand the backfield play a lot. I was able to coach receivers, but like Coach Esswein said, that those front five guys are honestly the meat and potatoes of the offense and the defense. Those guys make magic happen. So, be a sponge as much as possible, create those great relationships, and network as much as possible with coaches around the state. Get on some Zoom clinics this year if you're serious about coaching. I know that Coach Ambrose down in Franklin's hosting one almost every Thursday night. But take notes and decipher the things that you want to bring with you as a coach if coaching is something that you're really serious about. And then some things that you may not want to have that ready and available so you can kind of go back on those notes over time. So.
Great stuff. Again, guys, thank you so much for taking some time to share your experience, share what's going on with your programs with us. We wish you the best of luck this year. We'll be following, and it'll be a challenge, but hopefully it'll be really rewarding and ultimately very successful for all of you. So thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Thank you. Best of luck, guys.